The sun hung low in a smoke-stained sky, its light dimmed by thick, choking clouds of ash. Los Angeles, once bustling with life, now lay eerily silent save for the distant crackle of fire and the wail of evacuation sirens. Sarah clutched the steering wheel, her knuckles white with tension as her sedan sped down a narrow suburban road. In the back seat, her 8-year-old daughter, Emily, stared out of the window wide-eyed, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit against her chest. Just hours ago, they had been sitting on their living room floor, folding laundry and laughing over one of Emily's school stories. The news had been playing in the background, but neither paid much attention until the anchor's voice grew grave. The wildfires, driven by relentless winds, had jumped containment lines, turning neighborhoods into fiery traps. Their quiet street, thought to be safe, now faced immediate evacuation. The air was thick with smoke, and embers floated like vengeful fireflies. Houses they passed were ablaze, flames dancing hungrily through roofs and windows. Traffic had become a chaotic snarl, vehicles abandoned on the roadside as people fled on foot. Sarah's heart raced as she swerved to avoid fallen branches and burning debris. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" Emily's small voice cut through the roar of her thoughts. Sarah glanced at her daughter in the rearview mirror. Her eyes softened despite the panic rising in her chest. "We will, sweetheart. I promise." But promises felt fragile amid the devastation. The GPS had failed as signal towers succumbed to the fire, and roads marked as safe were now blocked by flames. Their progress ground to a halt as they approached a fallen power line. "No, no, no," Sarah muttered, banging the steering wheel. They were cut off. Behind them, the fire roared closer, and sparks leapt from the ground like fireworks. Emily began to cry softly. Sarah's mind raced for options. The car couldn't take them any further, and there was nowhere safe to run. She stepped outside, coughing as the smoke clawed at her lungs, searching for any way out. She froze as the distant sound of engines, something powerful and fast, pierced the din. Hope stirred, fragile but insistent. What was coming through the inferno? Thousands of miles away, in the sleek command center of SpaceX headquarters, Elon Musk stared intently at a wall of monitors. Each screen displayed real-time data, heat maps, wind trajectories, and drone footage of the Los Angeles wildfires. The sheer scope of the destruction was staggering. Entire neighborhoods reduced to ash, lives uprooted, hope flickering like the dying embers. Elon leaned forward, his jaw tight as he scanned the alerts. Among them was a particular distress call flagged by Tesla's new emergency network. A single signal from an abandoned sedan in the fire's path. "Who sent this?" Elon asked, gesturing at the screen. One of the engineers turned, his voice steady but grim. "An automatic SOS. Tesla vehicles are programmed to transmit emergency locations when critical conditions are detected. It's from a Model S. The signal indicates a mother and child are trapped." Elon stared at the blinking red dot on the digital map. Time was running out. The flames were rapidly closing in on their location. Ordinary emergency services were overwhelmed, and evacuation routes had collapsed. He exhaled sharply, then snapped into action. "Get me the status of our Skydrone prototypes." The room fell silent as his team exchanged uncertain glances. "The drones aren't ready for real-world deployment," one engineer admitted. "Their fireproofing is untested in an environment like this. Wind conditions may cause malfunction and—" "I didn't ask if they were ready," Elon interrupted, his gaze steely. "Are they airborne capable?" "Yes," the engineer conceded after a brief pause. "Then get one in the air. Now." Within minutes, a team of operators sprang into action. A sleek, metallic drone with reflective heat shields roared to life at a nearby testing facility. Powered by a Tesla battery and equipped with AI navigation, it was one of the most advanced rescue technologies ever built, though still largely experimental. As Elon watched its ascent on the monitor, his thoughts drifted briefly to the woman and her child. He didn't know their names or their story, but he knew the stakes. The drone hurtled forward, cutting through the smoky air like an arrow. On another screen, live footage from its onboard camera displayed an apocalyptic landscape: raging fires, toppled power lines, and abandoned vehicles. Then, through the haze, the camera locked onto movement. A lone figure, Sarah, stood outside her car, her daughter clutching her waist. They were waving frantically, their silhouettes framed against the hellish orange glow of encroaching flames. "Drone ETA?" Elon demanded. 6 minutes? It felt like an eternity. The drone hurtled forward through the burning horizon, its sleek body slicing through the smoke-streaked sky. In the cockpit at SpaceX headquarters, Elon watched the live feed with a laser focus. Every second mattered. He couldn't afford any mistakes. The stakes had never been higher. "Command, we're experiencing turbulence," a voice from the field operator crackled through the intercom. "The wind speeds over 40 miles per hour, and the smoke's messing with the signal." "Push through it," Elon ordered, his tone relentless. "They're still out there. We have no time." Outside, the drone's AI adapted quickly, compensating for every gust of wind as it powered through the hellish landscape. Trees, once vibrant, were reduced to skeletal remains, their charred trunks standing as dark witnesses to the devastation. And ahead, Sarah and Emily, just visible, standing beside their burning car. Time seemed to freeze in that moment. Elon swallowed hard as he studied the footage, focusing on every detail of their posture. Sarah was visibly shaking, holding Emily tightly, fear etched into every line of her face. Elon's heart squeezed in his chest. This was more than just a mission to him. It felt personal. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew this wasn't just about getting two people to safety. This was about proving that when technology is used right, when humanity and innovation unite, they can conquer anything. "Hold on, Sarah," Elon muttered under his breath as he adjusted a dial. The drone's speed was relentless, but the storm of smoke swirling below the aircraft was a formidable enemy. The closer it got to the mother and daughter, the more the signal jittered, wavering with each swirling gust that carried heat so intense the air shimmered. Meanwhile, on the ground, Sarah and Emily could do nothing but watch the inferno draw closer. As she looked around, the fire was moving fast, faster than she ever thought possible. What was once a scene of quiet suburban living had turned into a living nightmare. The once normal landscape was unrecognizable, transformed into a dangerous maze of burning debris and isolation. "Mom," Emily cried, tugging at her sleeve. "Is the helicopter going to come soon?" Sarah tried her best to smile, though it was hard to shake the rising panic inside her. "Yes, baby," she reassured her, her voice strained. "Help is on the way. We just need to hold on a little longer." But even as she spoke, the looming flames threatened to engulf everything. The eerie crackling from the fire grew louder, so close now that she could feel the heat on her skin. Through the smoke and destruction, an engine noise sounded almost like an answer to her prayers. But what kind of help was it? What was coming to them? The drone, though, was almost at its destination. Only 5 minutes away now. Elon's eyes never wavered from the screen. The wind whipped fiercely as the drone neared its target. Its metallic form bucked slightly against the gusts, the engine's hum filling the tense silence at SpaceX's control center. Elon Musk's fingers tapped rhythmically on the desk, his eyes unblinking as he followed every movement of the drone on the monitor. The onboard camera showed Sarah and Emily standing near the flames, desperate yet still clinging to hope. They didn't see the glowing light of the drone yet. For them, it was the quiet before the storm, an unbearable, endless moment of waiting. "ED, 2 minutes," came the crackling voice from the field operator. "We're picking up more interference. Adjusting flight path." Elon didn't reply. He didn't need to. He knew there was no room for error. He clenched his jaw, feeling the anxiety rise in his chest. The distance between them was closing, but it still felt like an eternity. The flames continued to leap, devouring everything in their path. Each new gust of wind carried the fire closer, bending the trees and sending shards of ash swirling in the air. A sudden gust of wind took the edge off, driving the fire even faster toward the edge of the cliff they were standing on. "We can't hold on much longer," Sarah whispered, more to herself than to her daughter. "We'll be fine though," she reassured Emily, brushing the soot from the little girl's forehead. Emily nodded silently, her trembling fingers gripping her stuffed rabbit with all the strength she could muster. They clung to each other, part of a bond forged in love, even as the flames loomed closer, promising to swallow them whole. But just as the heat intensified, Sarah heard it, the unmistakable roar of an engine. Her heart leapt in her chest. Was it a rescue vehicle? The fire truck's sirens? She tried to peer through the suffocating smoke, but nothing was clear. The uncertainty felt more oppressive than the flames. Time seemed to stretch like an endless loop of terror, then through the haze, a streak of silver pierced the darkness above. The drone descended rapidly, its wings gleaming in the firelight. For a split second, the fire seemed to recoil, as though nature itself recognized the miraculous force arriving. It was more than just a vehicle. It was a lifeline. In that moment, all the noise of the world, the crackling fire, the howling wind, the near-manic thoughts, faded into silence. Only the soft hum of the drone's advanced technology remained. It hovered, glowing like a beacon, before its lower section opened to reveal an extended rescue platform. Sarah held Emily tightly, her heart pounding with both relief and disbelief. "Hold on, honey. It's our way out," she whispered even as they stepped forward. The drone was their last hope, but against the odds it was here. As the platform lowered, the intensity of the moment hit. They had made it, against all odds, against the flames, against everything trying to stop them. Up above, the skies parted just enough to let this miracle shine through. "Come on," Sarah urged Emily, lifting her into the platform. She followed, her arms shaking but never slowing her steps. With one final glance back at the nightmare behind them, they ascended, rising above the inferno below. The drone carried them through the firestorm, both literal and emotional, into an uncertain but welcome dawn. Elon leaned back in his chair, eyes still trained on the screens. The weight of the world felt just a little lighter as he watched them reach safety. There was still much to do, but in that moment he knew something extraordinary had occurred. A story of survival, a moment when humanity and technology had worked together to rewrite what was possible. For Sarah and Emily, the real world began to unfold again, one that was no longer defined by the fire. They were safe, and that was all that mattered. The morning after the firestorm, a soft haze clung to Los Angeles, its skyline poking through a blanket of smoke that had started to lift, giving way to a calm but reluctant dawn. The damage was staggering: whole neighborhoods left charred and abandoned, homes reduced to ash, lives forever changed. Yet in the quiet aftermath of the inferno, Sarah and Emily stood side by side in a serene park, gazing out at a world that now felt both familiar and foreign. After a night of medical checks and comforting, they had finally been cleared to leave the emergency shelters. The fire had receded, but their journey toward recovery, emotionally and physically, was just beginning. Yet in the heart of their experience, an ember of hope burned brighter than the devastation. Their survival wasn't just a stroke of luck. It was a story of innovation meeting humanity. Sarah looked down at her daughter, the same fear still lingering in her chest, but there was something new: gratitude. Emily clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly, still shaken, but the light of hope in her eyes returned a little more with each passing hour. Together they began to heal, piece by piece. The memory of the drone remained vivid in their minds, how it descended from the flames, its lights a beacon of salvation. They had been lifted not just from the fire, but into a world where everything seemed possible. Sarah had been desperate, but that one intervention, by a force that once felt abstract and distant, had changed their lives forever. But Sarah wasn't the only one forever altered by that moment. On the edge of the park, just out of their view, Elon Musk stood at a distance. It wasn't unusual for him to be on the edge of any great technological development, but this was different. He had seen innovation change the world, but witnessing the effect of his creation, the drone that had carried Sarah and Emily from disaster, struck a deeper chord than he'd ever anticipated. There was power in giving people their futures back, in harnessing technology not just to advance science but to preserve the essence of what it means to be human. He watched quietly just for a moment, knowing that the connection had been made. He had achieved something rare. It wasn't just the success of a new prototype or even an engineering breakthrough, it was something far more profound. Before he left, he turned back for a last glance and a small, private smile tugged at his lips. In the end, it was simple. When human kindness and technology collided at the edge of disaster, miracles could happen. The inferno that nearly destroyed their lives had forged a new future. And that future held endless possibilities. In the days that followed, Los Angeles began to rebuild. The scars left by the wildfire were visible across the landscape: charred buildings, scorched forests, and roads filled with debris. Yet, amidst the ruins, hope glimmered. Rebirth was on the horizon, not just for the city, but for the people who had survived. For Sarah and Emily, their journey from the flames had been one of resilience and love. The bond between them, already strong, had only deepened in the face of the fire's fury. They had survived not by brute force but through determination, courage, and a spark of luck. A spark delivered by something that could only be called a miracle. A drone, built with the ingenuity of human technology and the heart of human compassion, had saved them. As they settled into a new, temporary home outside the city, Sarah couldn't stop reflecting on the strange convergence of technology and fate. In a time of overwhelming darkness, she'd found a beacon of light, shaped not by miracles of nature, but by the mind of one person who saw the world differently. Elon Musk's invention had been a lifeline, yes, but it had been more than that. It was a reminder that innovation, when used with compassion, could rewrite the story of a life in real time. For Elon, the moment Sarah and Emily had been lifted from the fire was just as transformative. In all of his ventures, whether it was space, electric cars, or advanced AI, He had never fully considered the depth of his invention's potential to save lives on the ground. The faces of those he helped, even anonymously, would never leave him. Technology had always been his tool to push the boundaries of possibility, but in that moment he had witnessed its most human impact. Perhaps that was what mattered the most. Not just the machines but the people they saved, the hearts they helped heal. In every beep of a system, in every calculated move of a drone, was a new opportunity, a chance to do more, do better. For the planet. For people like Sarah and Emily. For a world constantly on the edge of disaster. As the smoke finally cleared, both mother and inventor found that what had once been ashes had slowly started to turn into hope again. It was a fragile thing, this world. But with enough will and a little help from technology it could be rebuilt, piece by piece.